This is Lessons from Middle-earth. For the latest podcasts or blogs, visit www.thewanderingranger.com for more details. Now, here is your guide through Middle-earth, The Wandering Ranger.
Hello everybody, this is The Wandering Ranger, and this is Lessons from Middle-earth. The brand new episode for you coming exclusively on YouTube and Spreaker. If you would like more information, you can actually see all of my podcast episodes from my profile on Spreaker. I actually have it on the main page of www.thewanderingranger.com. That's www.thewanderingranger.com. So check that out. For those who are watching this on YouTube. For those who are listening on Spreaker, thank you so much for being here. You can visit thewanderingranger.com, where you'll find links to all my stuff. You'll find blogs, all that great stuff. I'm constantly working on the website. And so please consider going by and checking it out. Every day I'm working on there. Every day I'm adding things to it. Every day I'm doing something different, it seems. And that's a good thing. Because it is something worth putting my time into. Because I have decided to just, put my time in what I think is the good and most profitable things, and not necessarily profitable in the sense of economically profitable, but like profitable to my soul, to my intelligence, to my wit, my soul, my heart, my mind, everything. Just everything that I think is essential to my being is, at thewanderingranger.com. That's where the focus of everything is at. And I'm going to continue to make podcasts. I'm going to continue to make videos. But those are subs to my writing, because I think that's where I shine the most, and I think that's where I'm able to kind of put things into perspective, if you will. Anyways, welcome again to Lessons from Middle-earth. In this episode 2, the value of friendship, we're going to kind of explore some of these core values we talked about last time. Last time we talked about that we kind of, in a generic way, talked about some of these values of Lord of the Rings, these values of Tolkien's philosophy embedded in his work, and especially the Lord of the Rings, because that stands as kind of the apex of his writings, even though The Hobbit and the Silmarillion are very good books to read and are essential for any Tolkien fan and anyone to really kind of grasp what he has been trying to do. It's important to think about how that works, how that all of that comes to play. But the Lord of the Rings, by far, is his most essential work, and it's worth looking at everything. But we talked about some of those core values, and so we're going to talk about them today. But the first one is friendship. Now, it's important to understand how friendship hits with the Lord of the Rings, and the best way to do that is to look at what happened at the beginning of Two Towers. Now, again, I think I've said this before, but whether I said it on the live stream or if I said it in a previous podcast, I've kind of had to restrap some of the first 10 episodes that I did for multiple reasons. But I thought this is worth going into and exploring into detail. But it should be noted that Tolkien never wrote The Lord of the Rings as 3 separate books. They were all one book in 6 separate volumes. So, really, the end chapter of Fellowship of the Ring and the beginning chapter of Two Towers are kind of technically supposed to be considered one chapter. And I do like the fact that in the Peter Jackson Lord of the Ring movies, that they actually exhibited some of this into the movie. They actually ended Fellowship of the Ring with the passing of Boromir, which I thought was, quite frankly, the best thing they could have done. So, anyways, this is from The Departure of Boromir. Boromir is dead, said Aragorn. And if I am not pronouncing Aragorn as right as I sometimes do, please be unforgiving. No, please be forgiving, because I have a hard time pronouncing R's. So that's not because I don't know how to pronounce Aragorn. It's just if I don't stop and think about how to say it, like if I'm just in my natural state, I can't say R's. So I have to really focus on saying R's. Okay. Boromir is dead, said Aragorn. I'm unscathed, for I was not here with him. He fell, defending the hobbits, while I was away upon the hill. The hobbits! Cried Gimli. Where are they now? Where is Frodo? I do not know, answered Aragorn wearily. Before he died, Boromir told me that the orcs had bound him. He did not think that they were dead. I sent him to follow Merry and Pippin, but I did not ask him if Frodo or Sam were with him, nor until it was too late. All I have done today has gone amiss. What to do now? First we must tend to the fallen, said Legolas. We cannot leave him lying like a carrion among these foul orcs. We must be swift, said Gimli. He would not wish us to linger. We must follow the orcs, if there's any hope that any of our company are not living prisoners. But we do not know whether the ring-bearer is with them or not, said Aragorn. Are we to abandon him? Must we not seek him first? An evil choice now before us. Then let us do what we must, said Legolas. We have not the time or the tools to bury our comrade fitly, or to raise a mound over him. A cairn we may build. The labour would be hard and long, and there would be no stones. We could use the nearer than the waterside, said Gimli. Then let us lay him in a boat with his weapons, and the weapons of his vanquished foes, said Aragorn. We will send him to the falls of Rauros, and give him to the Anduin. The river of Gondor will take care of the rest. No evil creature will dishonour his bones. Quickly they searched the bodies of the orcs, gathering their swords and cloven helms and shields into a heap. See, cried Aragorn, here we have tokens. He picked up out from the pile of grim weapons 2 knives, the leave blade, damast, the gold and red. And searching further, he found also the sheaths, black set with red gems. No orc tools these, he said. They were borne by the hobbits. Doubtless the orcs despoiled them, but feared to keep the knives, knowing them for what they were, work of Westernese, wound about with the spells of the Bane of Mordor. Well, now, if they are still alive, our friends and weaponists are weaponists, and I take these things, hoping against hope, to give them back. And I, said Legolas, will take the arrows that I find, for my quiver is empty. He searched in the pile on the ground, and found not a few that were undamaged, and longer in the shaft such arrows as the orcs were accustomed to use. He looked at them closely. And Aragorn on the sling, he said, here lie many that are not the folk of Mordor, some of the north of the Misty Mountains. If I know anything of orcs and their kinds, there were others that are strange to me. Their gear is not of the manner of orcs at all. They were foul goblin soldiers of greater stature, swart, slant-eyed, and thick-legged, and large hands, and they were armed with short, broad-bladed shoulders, not with curved scimitars that usually are done by orcs, and the bows of yew, in length and shape like the bows of men. Upon their shields they bore a strange device, a small white hand in the center of a black field. On the front of their iron helms was an S rune, wrought of some white metal. "I have not seen these tokens before," said Aragorn. "What do they mean?" "S for Sauron," said Gimli. "That's easy to read." "Nay," said Aegus. "Sauron does not use elf runes. Neither does he use his right name, nor permit it to be spelt or spoken," said Aragorn. "And he does not use white. The orcs in the service of Barad-dûr use the sign of the red eye." He stood for a moment and thought. "S for Saruman, I guess," he said at length. "There's evil afoot in Isengard, and the west is no longer safe. It is as if Gandalf feared, by some means, the traitor Saruman had news of our journey. It's likely, too, he knew of Gandalf's fall. Pursuers from Moria may have escaped the vigilance of Lorien, and they may have avoided the land and come to Isengard by the other paths. Orcs travel fast, but Saruman has many ways of learning news. Do we remember the birds?" This is from Two Towers, and it's a great chapter in all of Tolkien's work, and for the primary reason that it shows the dedication that Aragorn and the Fellowship have, and they don't want to abandon their friends, even the ones that they would consider small by stature, the hobbits. It'd be easy for them to assume that because they were hobbits, that maybe they weren't worth the time. Maybe they weren't worth the energy. There would be a lot of reasons for Aragorn and Legolas and Gimli to go to Isengard, or to go to Rivendell, or go somewhere else, but track the hobbits. They could even most essentially say that our essential thing is to find Frodo and Sam over Merry and Pippin. But Aragorn understands something quite essential to the truth of the quest, and that is that the ring was beyond them. They understood that this was the choice, and that as long as Frodo and Sam were together, they would get through what they had. But they realized that they could not abandon the other hobbits. They realized they could not leave them to these new orcs that they had found, the Uruk-hai, as they discovered who they were. So this leads to a question of friendship. Now, there's many examples throughout Tolkien's work that show us what it's like to see the value of friendship. And without a doubt, it's something worth exploring, because there is something essential about Tolkien's work that begs us to see and look at the ideas of fellowship and friendship, far and beyond just what we see in the movies, or even what we see on the surface. To Tolkien, friendship meant more than just being friendly or having a nice conversation or a nice afternoon chat with somebody. Like, he saw the camaraderie, and you could say that it is because of you could say it's probably of his doing that he and his experiences, especially in war, led to this kind of thing. He had good friends in college. He met even better friends and kept some of those good friends, lost some of those friends in war. So he saw what it was like to go to war with your friends. He saw what it was like to see the destruction of war to your community. He saw that for him, one of the things that got him through the devastation of war and the Battle of Somme was the fact that he had this fellowship to hold on to. And to him, fellowship and friendship are something that are closely akin, and I think that it actually begs us to actually consider that when we are talking about friendship and we're talking about fellowship. Um, a lot of times in our modern day, friendship is looked upon as, we have something in common. We're friendly with each other. We're we're always nice to each other. We always compliment each other. We never say anything negative or never, you know, make mistakes and a lot of times people are so immediately unwilling to be forgiving of mistakes that are made, so unwilling to give people the benefit of a doubt. Um, but that's not actually what is in Tolkien's mind for friendship or fellowship. There is an understanding that friendship and fellowship is both the nature of being and traveling together with companions, and then also a vocation that comes from being with people. So the hobbits very much fulfill a vocation to Frodo. It's through his friends that they don't ever let him go. And it really is even the truest with Sam, who is his gardener and his manservant as well as more than he is just an ordinary friend. But there's an understanding there that the friendship that we're talking about and the fellowship that we're talking about stems from people who feel a commitment to another person. And how does one create that kind of kinship with somebody? It can't be done overnight, and it can't be just assumed. You have to go through some journeys together. You have to go through some trials. You have to go through some tribulations to strengthen your friendship. No doubt, uh, Frodo and Sam are really good friends at the beginning of the story, but they become more best of friends to the point where at the end of Return of the King, when we see Frodo saying goodbye to Sam when he gets on the ships to Valinor, we see basically Sam cry, and we see him literally lament the fact that he's losing a brother. They've become like family. And that comes from a couple of things. One, it comes from the hobbits' understanding of vocation of friendship and service to each other. And even if you're in a situation where you may work for someone or you may be tasked with doing a job for someone, that vocation never ends. There's also an understanding as well that from someone like Aragorn, that basically, that idea for him is that uh, really friendship is akin to uh, allowing somebody uh, to feeling like you have to protect them. So for him, he feels a vocation as a ranger to protect those who travel with him, and to guide them. And when he sees that the party and the fellowship have been separated, he feels the personal weight of the failure of that parting more than probably he should on the surface. But it's because he sees his friendship not just as a common thing, or just as a nicety, or just as nice blokes who are associated with each other. It's out of vocation. And it's important that you understand the Christian concept of vocation if you're going to truly understand Tolkien's view of friendship and fellowship. he sees much of the world, especially people who share his joys of the faith and imagination. People like C.S. Lewis were friends, and they were fellows, and they created a commodity. They created a companionship based on the idea that both of them served a vocation for the other. They served to either be mentor and in fact, there's a lot of similarities between the friendship of Sam and Frodo and that with Tolkien and C.S. Lewis, or Jack as he was known. You know, these two men created some of the greatest work of fiction ever created, and it was born out of friendship. It was born out of a vocation that Tolkien had, that everyone he met, that meant something to him, that he met. He wanted to let them know, like, the truth. He was committed to the task of talking about the essential things in life. And I found for myself that you can't really get to understanding Tolkien or understanding anything that you find in the Fellowship of the Ring or the Return of the King or the Two Towers or the Hobbit without seeing Tolkien's understanding of Christian vocation and understanding how that translates to friendship. Friendship is born out of adversity. It's born out of shared tragedies and griefs as well as victories. So how can we find the value of friendship in our lives and in our world? That's a very good question to ask. It seemingly is a very hard thing to do. I can tell you for my part that finding good friends has been a difficult thing because most people have a hard time associating vocation with friendship. I have been able to, in my life, find particularly two, but even more, one of those friends who's really got that. And he really fulfills a vocation. And it's more than just that we have each other's back. It's more that we have, more than we just, enjoy each other's company. There's a real sense and commitment that almost comes out of what some would assume is a gaiety, a homosexuality kind of element, where it's this idea of, two men can't really be that close without being gay. Tolkien and Lewis would disagree. We've lost this idea that men can really be devout friends to each other, that they could be committed in a kind of relationship, not of one born of sexuality or born of same-sex attraction, but one born of a constant sense of valuing the other person and being committed to being that friend. That commitment doesn't come without having an understanding of vocation and of discipleship. That's one of the things that's important. When you think about Jesus Christ, you think about what he had with the 12 apostles. What he created with them was more than just followers or just friends or associates. What he created with them was a covenant. And then because of that, they fulfilled a vocation to each other and to Christ and to the church as it began to develop over the years since Jesus' death and resurrection and ascension. So these things kind of constantly are at the forefront, I think, of Tolkien's mind when he looks at friendship. But for myself, I can tell you that friendship is a hard thing. There's an idea here that is really good, which is it's a concept that comes from the late Sir Roger Scruton, who I'm writing a post about now. I've been going through a lot to write about it. It's going to end up being a little bit past the time in which he passed away. But the reality is, he said, the thing about conservatism is that we understand the concept that it's easier to destroy something than it is to build something up. It's easier to destroy than it is to build. And so therefore, the hard thing to do is to build a lasting friendship with somebody on the basis of being committed in a vocation as a friend. Um, we use the word friend way too much. It's a term that we just, like love or lover, we overuse it. We water it down. We just constantly ascribe that label to anyone. And I can tell you recently, there was somebody that I met online that I felt could have been a friend, could have been a real good friend. And I'll admit that I probably was a bit more exaggerated with my language, and I was probably a bit more dramatic about the idea of being this person's friend. But I really truly thought that we were beginning a friendship. But when I criticized this person for doing something that I thought was wrong and something that I thought was stupid, which it was a stupid thing. Maybe part of this is on my fault for not always knowing how to aptly describe how I feel about things. But I do believe that part of this also has to do with this person's sensitivity to being called things and having his intelligence and having his experience called into question, which I get that. But I also think it comes to some degree from the fact that real friends, they may say things that are hard, they may say things that are frustrating, but you don't just cut them out. My late brother was somebody who had always constantly told me the truth, whether I wanted to hear it or not. Always constantly confronted me with the issues that I had to see for myself and I had to change for myself. And I value that now more than ever since his passing, because there are very few people who are willing to do that. Honesty is an important aspect of friendship, and if you don't have honesty from the get-go, if you're not able to be honest with yourself, this other person's not able to be honest with you, then it's going to not end the way you want to. One of the things that makes the Fellowship of the Ring and that friendship last so long is that they're able to unite on a truth that a lot of people can't. In fact, they come into the story divided. They come into the story at separate and at conflicting interests. Literally, there's actually built-in quote-unquote racism. I don't like using that word, but there are definitely prejudices and biases towards races in the Middle Earth. There's people who are across purpose with each other. There's people who come from different backgrounds and different cultures, and these people have to come together in order to accomplish this thing. And so therefore, the ring creates, because of its heavy burden, creates a real vocation out of the fellowship, and from that true fellowship stems from. So sometimes, when you're looking for a friend, if you're really wanting to find a good friend, look for somebody who will tell you the truth. Look for somebody who will be dedicated to that truth, regardless of how they may feel about it. And if you can't be honest with this person, if you and this person can't get to terms on what's happening in the world or what's going on in your life, then that's definitely going to probably be a problem going forward, undoubtedly, in my opinion. And that's something worth talking about, because the reality is that friendship is something that you can't just have. It's not an instant thing. This is something that also comes from a Christian understanding of sanctification. The understanding that there are processes to things. And so you don't, while justification in the Christian world is instant, you're instantly considered forgiven, you do have to build up to the process of being sanctified. This is one of the reasons why marriage is such a benefit to men and women, because it's not something that you just have overnight. In fact, I would argue that it actually is something that causes you to be considerate of the truth. In fact, when I think about it from a perspective of marriage, it's the same thing, right? Marriage kind of echoes the same thing here, because when you get married, you're not married that day. People think, "Oh, I got married on this day." Well, actually, you were in a wedding. You were wedded to that person. You entered into the vocation of marriage, but you weren't married, because marriage is not something you actually really are granted. You're not instantly married because you commit to each other in a way. It's the beginning of a journey. And I think that's something that's integral to Tolkien's understanding of friendship, is that it is a journey, it is a process, and sometimes you're going to be waylaid, sometimes you're going to be overcome with doubts and emotions, and sometimes you're going to get angry and frustrated with each other and feel like that person is doing you wrong, but you have to be willing to forgive them, you have to be willing to do what's right in the end. But that's a hard thing to do. A lot of times people, it's a one strike and you're out kind of thing. And that's not good. I will admit that if I see things with people where they instantly just react a certain way, that obviously there's certain people you can't be friends with. As much as you'd love to be friends with them, you can't, just by the nature of who they are. So it does matter that you find these like-minded people and share something in depth with them. And I think one of the reasons why I think the friendship that I'm speaking of recently, the internet friendship that I built, is that there was not too much shared interest in the deeper things in life. There might have been a mild likeness to the fact that there was elements, but that's again back to a problem, which is that you shouldn't go looking for, there's that song, "Don't look for love in all the wrong places." Well, you should do the same thing for friendship. You shouldn't look for friendship in the wrong places. And the best friendships are always going to be the ones where you can sit and share bread with that person and be invited into the hearth of their home and enjoy a good pipe and ale. But I hope this kind of starts us in a good direction for the podcast. Like I said, I've had to restart everything because I wanted to not be able to lose out on being copyright striked for anything that I've done on here. So it's for that I've changed the things that I've done. So anyways, it's great that you guys are all here and you've been a part of this journey with me. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a good day, and remember to look to the sky and to the horizon. Find your good fellowship with your friends who will stay with you no matter what. I can tell you that I have a friend that is that way. Like, he's very quick to kind of cutting you off and cutting you, and not always being the most agreeable or genteel person, but if there's something that you see in that person worthwhile, if there's something of immense value, and if you're committed to certain similar values, then I think that's definitely worth becoming friends over. We'll continue exploring the themes of Tolkien and going forward with that, and I'm really excited about that. So if you are interested in more about who I am, remember to hit my website, www.thewanderingranger.com. Thank you very much.
Darkness takes me alive. My life is at stake.